The first blow of the sledgehammer struck the brick furnace with a hollow sound, and Isabella Crane didn't flinch. Inside the glowing chamber, the hammer broke through, and a shelf of labeled glass canisters shattered into a rain of colored dust.
Stop. That's museum property. What have you done?
Noah Beckett dropped to his knees and lifted a broken shard. A red tag still tied to the glass, reading Smithsonian Renwick Gallery, accession 1847 to 22.
19 pieces. I was supposed to ship them back next week. They're gone.
By the time Dr. Elena Vasquez arrived from the Smithsonian, the furnace was a mausoleum of lost glass.
Dios mío, these were not replicas. These were the originals, irreplaceable.
The furnace had contained 19 pieces under federal contract for the Renwick Gallery, a $4.2 million inventory of 19th century American art glass.
They told me it was a fire hazard. They never even looked inside.
But the real fire was about to ignite. In a federal courtroom, where the Smithsonian was already preparing a $30 million claim that would burn the HOA to the ground. 3 weeks earlier, Noah Beckett had been halfway through restoring a lily vase blown in 1847.
The Renwick Gallery trusts me because I am the only one who can match the formula from the 1840s.
Across town, Isabella Crane read her fourth complaint to the HOA board about dangerous kiln temperatures.
If that furnace ever cracks from the heat exposure, the whole neighborhood could go up like a matchstick.
By noon, Chief Barry Hendricks stood at Noah's studio door, a decommission order already drafted.
You can't just shut down a federally rated conservation apparatus without a hearing.
This is a residential zone, Mr. Beckett. You have 72 hours to deactivate the furnace.
A red, decommissioned stamp bled through the paper, taped to the furnace door.
They never checked inside. They don't know what's in there.
And none of them had bothered to read the federal contract framed right behind them. Early that morning, Noah Beckett drove to the industrial supply house, his furnace still glowing inside the locked studio. By 9, Isabella Crane led Chief Hendricks and his crew toward the studio, a sledgehammer already in Deputy Thorne's grip.
What's going on over there? Why do they have a sledgehammer?
Hendricks taped the decommission order to the furnace door and stepped back, nodding to his crew.
Noah told me those were museum pieces. They can't destroy them.
A frantic call buzzed through on Hendricks' phone. Noah Beckett, shouting from the road.
Hendricks, listen to me. I have federal artifacts inside. Don't touch that furnace.
You heard the order. Take it down.
The first swing of the sledgehammer cracked through the firebrick, and the furnace let out a low, terrible groan. Tommy's camera never wavered, catching the shattering glass of 19 Smithsonian artifacts and Isabella's quiet smile. Noah stood paralyzed in the doorway, the shards of 19 priceless artifacts catching the morning light like crushed jewels.
I need a full inventory before we touch anything. This is a federal crime scene now.
Dr. Vasquez knelt beside a shattered goblet, its accession tag still legible through the dust. Renwick 1847 to 22.
19 federal artifacts. The entire fiscal quarter's restoration budget destroyed in minutes.
She pulled out her phone and dialed the Smithsonian's legal counsel in Washington.
Claire, it's a worst-case scenario. We need to invoke 18 U.S.C. Section 668 immediately. Cultural property destruction with federal nexus.
On the other end, Claire Ellison's voice turned cold as she realized what the HOA had done.
She said they'll file the paperwork within 72 hours. The HOA doesn't know what they've done.
The room fell silent, except for the faint sound of Elena's white gloves carefully sorting fragments. And somewhere in a leather binder at the Renwick, the Smithsonian's legal team began calculating the cost of a cultural crime that would soon shake the HOA to its foundations. 2 weeks later, a process server in a gray suit walked up Isabella Crane's cobblestone driveway and handed her a thick envelope marked United States District Court. The first page read, Smithsonian Institution v. Willow Creek Estates, HOA, and Isabella Crane, total claim $30,400,000.
That's not possible. They can't sue an HOA for $30 million.
Within hours, an emergency HOA meeting was called. The board members stared at the federal complaint like it was a bomb.
They're blaming me. They're all looking at me. I was only protecting the neighborhood. The fire marshal approved it.
The complaint detailed $4.2 million in artifacts, $6 million in contract breach, and a federal cultural loss multiplier that brought the total to $30.4 million.
That multiplier, it's because they're Smithsonian pieces. Federal jurisdiction.
At the bottom of the filing, the lead attorney's name stood out in bold. Claire Ellison, Office of the General Counsel, Smithsonian Institution. The HOA had never faced a federal lawsuit, and Isabella wasn't sure her insurance would cover a single cent of it. In his office, Franklin Gorham flipped through the HOA's liability policy with a growing sense of dread.
Intentional destruction of cultural property. This is exactly what they're accusing us of.
The clause had been buried in a rider that nobody had ever read.
Gorham, tell me we're covered. We have a $10 million umbrella policy.
It doesn't cover this. The destruction of federally protected art glass is an absolute exclusion.
Then it's coming out of the reserve fund and my own pocket.
Gorham tapped numbers into a calculator, then slid a single sheet across the desk.
1.8 million? That's my entire retirement.
Behind her, the other board members were already calculating their own losses. The meeting room fracturing into panic. The HOA's entire reserve fund was just over $2 million. Even if they emptied it, they couldn't cover a tenth of the federal claim. From her Washington office, Claire Ellison opened the discovery file on Willow Creek Estates and started with Noah's neighbor, Tommy Ruiz.
I recorded everything. From the moment they pulled up with that sledgehammer. The lady in pink never stopped watching.
Ellison froze the frame right at the moment. The furnace burst open. Isabella's face caught in a calm, knowing smile.
The federal contract was framed on the wall right next to the furnace. I pointed at it 3 times. Hendricks never looked.
She pulled the HOA's complaint archives, 14 nuisance filings from Isabella Crane, in 20 months, targeting every home-based business in the neighborhood. A week later, she sat across from Chief Barry Hendricks in his own office, a court reporter beside them.
Chief Hendricks, before you issued the decommission, did you read the federal certification posted on the furnace wall?
I saw some documents, but the HOA chair assured me it was a routine fire code matter.
Ellison slid a photo across the desk. The federal certification plaque, clearly visible on the furnace wall in the crime scene images. The fire marshal's silence filled the room, and the court reporter's keys stopped clicking.
We acted on the fire marshal's recommendation. It was a routine safety enforcement, nothing more.
But across town, the Smithsonian had already set up a press conference, a shattered goblet on a velvet cloth.
This piece was made in 1847. It survived the Civil War and 2 world wars, but not an HOA board meeting.
The footage aired that evening, and within hours, social media buried Isabella's defense under a mountain of outrage. A local reporter started digging and found 14 HOA complaint filings from Isabella in the past 2 years, all targeting home business owners. Each one had been dismissed for lack of evidence, but not before costing the neighbors thousands in legal fees.
They're turning the whole neighborhood against me.
Maybe now the truth will come out before the court date.
The next day, the county commissioner's office released a statement. The decommission order had been issued without proper federal clearance. It was the first crack in the official story, and Isabella could feel the ground shifting beneath her heels. In a federal courtroom 3 miles from the ruined studio, Claire Ellison rose with a black folder that would change everything.
Your Honor, I submit this federal certification. Noah Beckett's furnace was a cultural preservation conservation apparatus under federal jurisdiction.
The document bore the seal of the Department of the Interior, a federal order that no local authority could override.
Counsel,
Are you telling me this code compliance action was void ab initio?
Exactly. Your Honor. The preemption statute is explicit. They smashed a federally protected site.
From the gallery, Noah Beckett watched as the legal ground beneath the HOA turned to sand outside the courthouse. A federal agent approached Chief Barry Hendricks and handed him an ethics complaint.
You're serving me. I followed the protocol of the HOA Safety Committee.
But the complaint cited willful ignorance of federal law, a charge that could end his career and open the door to criminal liability. The HOA's entire defense now rested on an order that had never been legal, and their world was about to collapse. 3 days later, Chief Barry Hendricks sat before a federal ethics panel, his uniform still crisp, but his confidence gone.
I took her word for it. Mrs. Crane insisted the furnace was a fire hazard, and I didn't check the federal contract.
He unclipped his badge, set it on the polished wood, and the hearing room filled with the sound of his career ending. That evening, Franklin Gorham laid out the HOA's financial exposure in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and fear.
If we go to trial, the federal cultural loss multiplier alone could triple the claim. They'll take everything.
He's talking about my house, my savings, everything.
The board members sat frozen, some pulling out personal checkbooks as if counting what they had to lose.
The Smithsonian will settle for $14 million. That's our only exit. And Mrs. Crane, your personal share remains 1.8.
That's not a settlement. That's a robbery. I won't agree to it.
But even as she spoke, the signatures on the settlement offer were already being drafted by hands that no longer trusted her. The settlement offer arrived in a thin manila envelope, slid under the door of Noah's temporary workshop.
$10 million, and a clause that says the HOA admits no fault, as if the glass put itself back together.
Noah, if we take this, the law stays silent. The next glassblower won't have a federal shield. This case can protect every cultural conservator in the country.
The Renwick's board agrees. A settlement without precedent leaves every federal artifact loan at the mercy of the next HOA chair.
It's not just my furnace, it's every artist who ever signed a federal contract. So if we go to trial, we're not just fighting for my lost work. We're building a wall around every federal craftsperson from here to Alaska.
Exactly. And with the preemption ruling we already have, the judge will likely make it permanent. The HOA will have to pay the full $14 million.
Then we reject the settlement. We go to trial. I am not letting them pretend this never happened.
The rejection was filed the next morning. The HOA's last off-ramp was now a dead end. The case would now proceed to a full federal trial, and the HOA's remaining hope scattered like glass dust. The rumors spread through the neighborhood like smoke from a furnace that never got cold. Their reserve funds were gone, and Isabella Crane was the reason. By the following week, a recall petition was taped to every mailbox in the development.
This is absurd. I protected this neighborhood from a genuine fire hazard. The law is being twisted by a museum.
At the emergency HOA meeting, the folding chairs were filled with homeowners who'd never attended before.
They're looking at me like I am the one who swung the sledgehammer. You can't recall me. I am the only one who knows how to run this board. Without me, this HOA will collapse.
A board member slid a clipboard across the table. 62 signatures. More than the quorum needed. The no confidence vote was unanimous. Isabella Crane was removed as HOA chair effective immediately. The next morning, she opened the door to her HOOL office and found it already being cleared out by the interim chair. The recall was final. Isabella now faced the trial with no authority, no allies, and a community that blamed her for everything. At the final pre-trial hearing, the new fire marshal took the stand and confirmed what Hendricks should have known. The furnace was federally immune. He testified that the certification had been on file for 7 years, accessible with a simple record search.
Your Honor, the certification was not properly posted. It was inside the furnace room, not on the public-facing exterior.
Mr. Gorham, federal law does not require a billboard. The duty was on your client to check. Motion denied.
Then Claire Ellison reminded the court that 18 U.S.C. Section 668 carried a criminal penalty for willful destruction of cultural property.
Criminal referral. They can't be serious. They're talking about putting me in prison.
Don't react. It's a scare tactic. No federal prosecutor will touch a local HOA case.
But the gavel fell. Trial was set for 60 days from now. No more continuances. Isabella's personal assets were now frozen by court order, and the HOA's legal fund was exhausted. She had 60 days to find a miracle, or face financial ruin and possible criminal charges. 2 weeks before the trial, the HOA board held a closed session and voted not to fight, but to surrender. Claire Ellison's phone rang as she reviewed the evidence file. The terms were complete. Full liability, $14 million, and a permanent zoning injunction.
They're admitting fault, including the permanent ban on zoning interference.
Full admission. This is exactly the precedent we asked for. It will protect every conservation furnace in the country.
Then we accept. The trial was never about punishment. It was about making sure no HOA ever does this again.
The settlement was filed at the courthouse within hours. The HOA's reserve fund, $2.4 million, was immediately liquidated. That same morning, a certified letter arrived at Isabella Crane's front door.
1.8 million. Payable within 90 days. They might as well ask me to sell the house. This isn't justice. It's a vendetta. I'll appeal. I'll file every motion I have left.
But the settlement was binding and court enforced. Her assets remained frozen. The 90-day clock had already started. The first stop was a pawn shop on the industrial side of town. Her pearl necklace lay on a velvet tray beneath fluorescent light.
20 years of marriage, and it's worth $3,700. Not even a dent.
By Friday, a tow truck had loaded her Range Rover onto a flatbed while a neighbor filmed from across the street.
It's paid off. That's theft. I'll call the police.
Within days, a for sale sign sprouted from the manicured lawn, the listing price barely covering her personal judgment.
This was supposed to be my forever home.
On a cold, damp Thursday, a sheriff's deputy taped the bank repossession notice to her front door while she watched from the driveway.
It's done. There's nothing left to fight for.
She carried a single cardboard box to a rented sedan and drove away without looking back. The estate sale company took the rest. In mailboxes across Willow Creek, HOA members opened letters advising that their reserve fund had been liquidated and special assessments were due within 60 days. A month after the settlement, Noah received a federal courier package, the $14 million check certified to his studio trust.
$14 million. Enough to build a furnace twice the size and make sure no local bureaucrat ever touches it again.
The first bricks rose from the ash, masons laying fire brick according to the Smithsonian's expansion blueprints. The design was monumental. A double-chamber conservation kiln with redundant safety systems, certified for the next century. Then the crane lifted the new tempered steel door into place, and Noah's hand touched the cold frame.
That plaque, that's the real furnace. No HOA, no marshal, no county ordinance can ever touch it again.
The Smithsonian architects approved the expansion, a conservation lab, secure vault, all funded. Welcome to the future.
And the federal exemption, is it permanent?
Permanent. Your studio is now a federal cultural site, untouchable by local authorities.
The fire that had been smashed now burned twice as hot, twice as bright, and forever beyond the reach of anyone who didn't understand what it protected. In the new conservation lab, Noah Beckett worked for months, fragment by fragment, matching edges from 3D scans that predated the destruction.
Every break tells a story. This one says, I survived the fire, the hammer, and the lies.
The reconstruction is complete. The Renwick is calling it the Survivor Collection. They want a national tour, and they want a national tour, and they want you to open it.
The banner unfurled across the Renwick's marble atrium. The Survivor Collection. 19 pieces of American glass, broken and reborn.
These pieces survived fire, the swing of a sledgehammer, and a lie told by people who should have protected them. Now they're back, and so am I.
The crowd stood, applause rolling through the hall, camera flashes illuminating the repaired artifacts in their cases.
Noah didn't just restore glass. He restored a piece of American art history and set a legal precedent that will last.
This is what it feels like to win back not just my work, but everyone's right to create without fear.
The repaired vase, once catalogued as Renwick 1847 to 22, now carried a new label: Survivor, reborn through fire and federal law. In the front row, Claire Ellison quietly folded the settlement order into her briefcase, knowing the law had finally caught up with justice. 6 months after the settlement, the Willow Creek HOA received a final notice. The reserve fund was insolvent, and a special assessment of $5,000 per household was due within 60 days. Isabella Crane now worked the evening shift at a discount retail store, her coral pink blazer replaced by a polyester uniform vest.
Keep your head down. Nobody from the old neighborhood shops here. Mrs. Delaney, it's been a while.
The woman didn't lift her eyes from the card reader. She tapped, took her bag, and walked out without a word. After her shift, Isabella took the long way home, past the studio that had started it all. The new federal exemption plaque gleamed above the door.
Don't look. It's just a plaque. It doesn't matter.
But the glow of Noah's rebuilt furnace followed her down the street, its chimney smoking steadily against the darkening sky. The HOA's reserve fund was gone, and every household now carried the debt of one woman's vendetta against federal art. Isabella Crane had once run the board that tried to crush a federal artisan. Now she couldn't even afford to live in the neighborhood she had tried to protect. 1 year later, the rebuilt studio hummed with quiet purpose, the new furnace glowing steady and bright.
Temperature is everything, kid. Too hot, and the glass cracks. Too cold, and it won't form. But temperature isn't the only thing that matters. That plaque. It means no one can ever take this furnace from you, but you have to be willing to fight for what you create.
The young apprentice, a Smithsonian scholarship student, watched with wide eyes, absorbing every word.
It's not just about the glass. It's about the right to make it.
The apprentice lifted a blowpipe, cheeks puffing, and a small glowing orb began to swell at the end.
Good. Now keep the rotation steady. That's it.
Outside the studio door, the federal exemption plaque caught the last light of the afternoon, its lettering sharp and permanent. The apprentice's first piece cooled on the marver, a simple, perfect vase, and Noah Beckett smiled, knowing the craft would survive him. The fire that had almost been extinguished now burned in 2 sets of hands, and the law stood guard like a silent watchman, unshakable. In a corner of the Renwick Gallery, a new exhibit on cultural property law drew visitors to a looping video, the cell phone footage that started it all. On the screen, Deputy Thorne's sledgehammer arced through the dusty light, and Isabella Crane watched from the edge of the frame. A small brass caption read, "When an HOA tried to bully a glassblower, the law pushed back. Federal preemption under 18 U.S.C. Section 668.
So that's what it looked like from the outside. That's the moment everything changed.
Noah turned and saw Tommy Ruiz standing a few feet away, his phone still in his hand, as if it had never stopped recording.
Tommy, you helped make this right, kid. More than you'll ever know.
I just pointed my phone at something I couldn't believe. The rest was you.
They stood together and watched the furnace fall again, but this time it rebuilt itself on the screen, a loop of justice, not destruction. The video's final frame froze on a cascade of shattered glass, and then the screen went dark, but the law it had inspired would never be erased. And in that gallery, A glassblower and his neighbor became the guardians of a story that would protect every artist who ever lit a furnace. Weeks later, a Denver federal judge cited Beckett v. Willow Creek Estates to protect a sculptor's workshop in Colorado Springs, the precedent already taking root. The survivor collection moved through Chicago and San Francisco, the repaired artifacts a traveling testimony that the law could heal what hatred broke. Isabella Crane worked a double shift at the discount store, the fluorescent light bleaching her face of the last trace of her old life.
They put up a new sign at the entrance. Respect the law. I saw it on my way in.
At the entrance to Willow Creek, the old HOA sign had been replaced. It now read, Willow Creek Estates, respect the law. Noah Beckett walked the gravel path to his studio at sunset, the heat of the furnace already visible through the windows.
Every piece of glass in there started as sand. The fire never forgets.
He paused at the door, his hand on the federal plaque, and looked back at the sky, as if checking that the law still held. Inside, the new apprentice was already shaping tomorrow's glass, and the fire that had almost been stolen now belonged to them all. Noah Beckett closed the door, and the furnace's glow held steady against the night, untouchable, unbreakable, and fully alive. The sign at Willow Creek Estates now had a new line, carved beneath the old one, Home of the Survivor Collection, Est 2024. Noah Beckett stood at his door, looking at the sign for a long moment, then up at the fading sun.
We're still here.
The rebuilt studio behind him glowed with the same fire that had once been smashed, now brighter than ever. Inside, the apprentice worked alone, shaping a new piece from a gather of molten glass, the pipes spinning with practiced ease. The federal exemption plaque caught the last light, its letters as permanent as the law that put them there. Noah smiled, not a triumphant smile, but one of peace, the peace of a craftsman who had fought the fire and won. The sunset stretched shadows across the gravel, the studio door closing one final time as the camera pulled back. The sound of a glassblower's pipe drifted through the cooling air, a steady, rhythmic breath that had outlasted the hammer, the lies, and the lawless. The image softened into darkness, and the only thing that remained was the sound of glass still singing.